Welcome to Flick Filter. I'm Big Diesel.
I'm the professor.
And today we're going to talk about...
What are we talking about?
What's it called? Hitman?
Hitman is... Well, we talk about movies. We haven't really discussed this before. We kind of did a little bit during our intro video. You're more of the critic guy, would you say?
A little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah.
I can be critical.
Yeah.
Or I can.
A little bit. I can be as well, but I'm more of... I come from the perspective of... I'm more of the analysis type of guy. Like, I never really considered myself a movie critic. I like movie criticism. I like watching different breakdowns of movies and a lot of analysis and of writing, filmmaking. So that's kind of the angle that I tend to come with.
Yeah. And
I think that we both come from different perspectives, and that's really what we want to bring to the channel. So that's just a little quick little blurb.
Okay.
But yeah, so today,
Big Diesel, the critic.
I'm the analysis because I'm also a filmmaker, writer, do some of that.
We're not gonna go list the whole thing.
Yeah. So, but yeah,
Analysis.
today we're gonna be talking about Hitman.
Netflix is Hitman.
Yeah, so it is technically a Netflix original, or it's a movie by Richard Linklater. If familiar with him, he's directed movies like Dazed and Confused. That's probably his most well-known. Either that or School of Rock. But he also did the Before trilogy, so Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, Before Midnight. So he's well accomplished director. He's been around for probably 30 plus years at this point. And yeah, Hitman is his latest movie. How would you describe it? Just
confusing.
Yeah, it was definitely different than.
First off, it stars Glen Powell.
Yeah, we should mention. Stars Glen Powell.
He's been in everything.
He's been in a lot of stuff.
I would really like him as Hal Jordan.
A lot of people have said that.
I think that's perfect casting.
That would be really good casting.
Better than Ryan Reynolds as Green But.
Oh yeah, probably. So yeah, he's the star. He's the lead of the film. And essentially, the premise is his character. It's somewhat based on a real story or based off of a real person. And essentially, he's a college professor. He's been a college professor who is essentially like a police informant in a sense, or he works, or he was working kind of in like tech support. They don't really explain in the movie how he got that job.
They don't explain a lot of stuff. They just drop stuff on you. And by the way,
they put you in the middle of it. Even though he does do some narration in the movie at first, but he's essentially like he's a professor of psychology and I think philosophy. And he's very like, I guess, mild-mannered in a sense. Like, you would not suspect him to be, a hitman, so what happens is he's working, for the police or with the police, and the guy who normally is the hitman, to explain it,
First off,
I did a bad job explaining.
It's all good. It's all good. But
thing is,
I came in because I never heard of this movie before you told me.
Yeah.
And then I watched the trailer before meeting up with you.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm watching the movie, and nothing was lining up. So if you're just trying to look at the trailer and go by what the trailer tells you, it can be very misleading, and I got the wrong... It didn't seem like the same movie.
Yeah.
It seemed like a whole bunch of movies just kind of collaborated together. But I'm just saying, before like if you've seen the trailer, you might be confused going into it.
Yeah, I was a little confused. I wasn't as confused because I've heard enough about the movie going in, and I've seen like a few interviews, but I didn't know too much. I didn't want to like spoil myself, but I did see the trailers, and I do feel like the trailer did give a lot away, or enough away to know like where the movie was heading, where the plot was heading overall. There's definitely a lot of things that I didn't know, but
so go on to explain
the actual gist is what Glen Powell's character explains is that the way we think of hitman in popular culture and society, the way movies portray them, it doesn't really work that way. Like, there aren't these hitmen out here that are just getting paid to, assassinate people, take people out, take, people out that you just...
Now, I'm sure that probably was how it was done in the West, or... I'm
sure there is a level of like, hey, I need to get rid of somebody, and...
The wanted posters,
Yeah,
you're
talking about like bounty hunters?
Well, yeah. Hitman, bounty hunters.
But, a bounty hunter is more so you're trying to find somebody that is wanted or that's a criminal, and I don't think they're necessarily contracted to actually, take him out. But with hitmen, they're specifically, target to take somebody out. Can't say that the other word.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I'm selling that more so for myself, to remind myself. But, yes, so with hitmen, it doesn't really work in real life the way that people think it does, but I think the police use that as an opportunity to be like, oh, you're trying to get somebody, or what happens is, like, if somebody's talking to somebody else who wants to get rid of somebody, then often what happens is police will get wind of it if that person goes to them, and then they'll set up a fake hitman to basically carry this job out, and they'll meet with the person who wants to get rid of the other person, and that person essentially will incriminate themselves so that they can then be put away.
Yeah.
So, Glen Powell was explaining this, but then
you don't want to tell the whole movie.
Yeah, don't want to tell the whole movie, but essentially, this wasn't his particular role at first, but then he gets into this role, and
you don't have to say why. Right?
Yeah. I'm not going to say why. And he ends up being pretty good at it. He's playing these different characters, and then
first off, the whole beginning drags.
Yeah.
It was a slow start, and then it feels like, oh yeah, now it's like halfway. Yeah. And it got to the point.
Yeah, I think it definitely did a lot to kind of
set up.
Definitely a lot of setup, and then also trying to give you the type of character that he is. And I think that's the
felt like it just dragged to, like, he just drug it out to.
I think it's probably because of the type of filmmaker that Richard Linklater is. If you're familiar with Dazed and Confused, which that's kind of like a hangout movie, the Before trilogy, those movies are very dialogue based, very like conversation heavy, and you can kind of see that with this movie, at least in my opinion, where he's having these long conversations with people that he's just meeting for the first time, and he's playing these different characters. I think that's what Richard Linklater was trying to lean into kind of almost like a character study in him playing these different characters.
Yeah.
But then he becomes this one particular character when he meets the love interest in a sense. And if you see the trailer, I don't want to give away too much, but she's in a predicament and he essentially tries to help her, and then that's where the movie really starts to progress. And
because it's kind of a romance.
Yeah, it is essentially a romance, and I was gonna also say there's some comedic moments. Some of them seem intentional, and then some other ones, to my opinion, weren't. So it was like, I'm like, is this a comedy? Or not a full-blown comedy, but there were some, like, actually pretty funny scenes in there. So,
Not like ha-ha, but, you know, I got a
little chuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glenn killed it.
Yeah, he did.
I think he kills every role he's getting. Now he's about to be in Twisters, which we'll see later. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing more. So, what did you think about it?
So, I probably liked it more than you did. And I think maybe just because I somewhat knew what I was getting into. It definitely was different.
Because you've seen his other movies.
Yeah, and it definitely was different than I expected. Don't get me wrong, but I did enjoy it. There were parts where I was like, okay, I'm not like these decisions that these characters are making. I'm like, they're not really making sense.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, one minute they do something where I'm like, oh, that was actually smart. Or that was like, you said all this stuff, and, like, you were playing this character, you said everything to the T, and then you just go and do something where I'm like, now, why would you say that? So, there were certain decisions where it kind of made me scratch my head and frustrate me, but I did enjoy the story. Like, I did enjoy the movie overall.
I feel like I like Glen Powell, and I loved his performance. Mm-hmm. Everything was just all over the place.
Yeah.
So when I go into a movie and I watch a trailer, and I think that's what threw me off. Mm-hmm. But I like to know what I'm getting myself into before I watch it. At least give me a little sliver of what I'm getting myself into, what kind of movie I'm about to watch. And then when I watch it, and it's not really what the trailers advertise.
Yeah.
Or at least at first. I'm just like, because the first beginning part I was like, alright, let's pick it up. And then throughout it was just still all over the place. It felt like it wanted to be two movies in one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say I hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a good movie, but I feel like it needed some more structure.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
That's fair.
You know, sometimes when you make a movie, you got to pick one. Yeah, there's a lot of action romances, but it still kind of picks a lane and stays in it.
Yeah. So, not to interrupt, but compare it to, like, when you say action romance, compare it to, like, The Fall Guy, because that was definitely an action romance, but you felt like that one was more consistent in its tone, or what?
Yeah, because it was more of a romance still.
Yeah.
It just had a little sprinkle of action in it.
You talking about Fall Guy?
Fall Guy, yeah.
Yeah. What about this one? It was more. I felt like this one was more romance. Well, this one didn't have more. This one didn't
I'm
have
just
a lot
saying. When I said action romance, I'm just saying, if you're going for an action romance, I'm not saying this is an action romance or felt like an action. I'm just saying an example. If you're picking an action romance, stick with one thing and go with it.
Gotcha.
Fall Guy was basically still romance. It had a lot of action sprinkled into it, but it still was straight up a romance. It just had action in it.
Gotcha.
You get what I'm saying? So like if it's a sci-fi thriller, it's still going to be a thriller,
but it has sci-fi around it.
Yeah.
So the core of this, basically what you're saying is the core of the story is a romance, but the genre is what they sprinkle in. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I got you.
Let me cook.
Yeah, let him cook. Let him cook.
No, but then I felt like this had so much. There was stuff in the courtroom. There was cop stuff. And I feel like he had a lot of pacing issues. The whole first half was not a romance.
No, the whole first half.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with romance at all.
Yeah.
Until you bring the girl in.
That is true.
Then all of a sudden now we
think,
got what they were trying to do. So and then still I felt like his vision was all over the place with how he was writing the characters and what the characters were doing.
Yeah.
It was not very structured. So
okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, I think he just.
It might be a tone thing as well. From what I'm hearing, how you're kind of breaking it down because. Yeah, I think it's a structure thing too. But when you talk about like romance and the fact that like it's not really a romance until they introduce the.
Let's talk about Hitch, for example. Not trying to do too many comparisons.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Hitch.
Classic.
You knew from the get-go it was a romance.
Of course.
And then it had some comedy. Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It did not feel like a romance at all. And I'm not saying you need to feel like that, but if that's what you're going for, from point A to point B, it needs to feel like, oh yeah, romance.
Got you.
Also, there was another part that was just thrown in there. We didn't know he ever had a girlfriend at all. I didn't want to say it straight up.
Oh, my bad.
But it's just kind of thrown in there and like, okay.
And maybe that's just, I don't know. That is a good point.
It was not just that moment. It was a lot of moments where I'm trying to follow what the characters are doing, and it's all over the place, No,
that's real.
So, you gotta tell the audience what's really going on, which there is a clever way of what he was doing when he was trying to trick some people, but he was using his phone, and that was very clever.
Yeah.
But the whole time that something would, I feel like people try to use twists when there don't need to be twists. Or it doesn't make sense for the twist. So he'll try to switch it up to try to think it's like clever, but it just doesn't make sense. Like you were saying, there's a lot of things that the characters did that didn't make sense. And I think it's because, they're trying to throw a wrench in there to try to make it clever. But at the end of it, I think
maybe
they didn't know what they were trying to do. It was all over the place.
Yeah. I think what you said about
and I need to stop tearing it down. Because again, it was still a good movie.
Yeah, but I think you're gonna see. I like the perspective you come from because you definitely see a lot of the flaws. I think when I like a movie, my natural brain is I try to ignore the flaws. There's certain movies where I see glaring flaws that I can't ignore, but I think if I like a movie enough, then I can kind of like push them aside, even if I still know that they're there. But something you said about with the romance not really even being there at first, and I think that was probably because of, I hope this isn't spoiled, but the fact that they don't even introduce the
well, we already said that.
The lead until maybe 30.
Lead.
Not lead. Sorry, not the lead. They don't introduce the love interest until a significant ways and I think that's kind of when it becomes that. And even then, I mean, it's definitely
even when they meet, it feels like they because not getting into spoilers, but even when they meet, it's not like. You still don't feel like it's a romance. The tone is not romance.
And I'm wondering if that's because of the nature of the type of work that he's in, supposedly, because it's like you're a hitman, supposedly you're a contracted killer. Yeah. So I say that to say, like, I see why there were certain decisions made, but I also feel like because I do see like okay, there could have been some things that were executed a little bit better, but overall, I still really enjoyed the movie. There was one other thing, but I was just gonna say that the brain's going blank, but I did I enjoyed it overall. I think like you said, Glen Powell. Great performance from him. Like the love interest as well. At least I like. Well,
she was cool.
Yeah. And I did like the supporting characters. There's one in particular. He was very annoying, but he did a great job. I do feel like everybody did a good job.
I feel like it's funny when people say, "Oh yeah, this character was annoying," but that's why they're actually doing a good job. Yeah. So, all in all, I'd give it a 3.5.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So check it out. See what you think.
It's on Netflix.
Hitman. So,
yes, sir.
Starring Glen Powell, and let us know your thoughts.
Yep. Let us know. Hitman, Glen Powell, Adriana Arjona, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, is the love interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let us know your thoughts in the descriptions below. Please follow us on socials, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, your family,
your cats, your cousin.
Of course, man, and send us any recommendations on anything on Netflix or any other streaming services that you want us to review and watch.
Let us know what you're watching.
And we're trying to get to 100 subscribers, so let people know. And as always, peace out.
All right, y'all. Peace.
God bless.